Zero prospects. Well, there'd been one. She thought about the letter from John still in her nightstand. The one and only letter she'd received from him, even though he'd promised to write her every day. She hadn't been foolish enough to hold him to that specific promise, but she had expected him to write, at the very least, to respond to her letters. Instead, she hadn't heard from him in over a year. "Ivy? Are you sure you're all right? You seem a little preoccupied." "I'm okay," and she was, except when she thought about John, or her single status, two things she preferred not to dwell on. Mom opened her mouth, but then she closed it. Another sign that her mother was concerned. Mom rarely failed to speak her mind. Ivy knew she should let the matter drop, but after a few seconds and against her better judgment, she said, "What?" "It's just..." Mom swirled soapy water around her spatula in the sink. "I wondered if maybe you were having some trouble adjusting to Karen not being here." "Karen moved out months ago. Besides," she said, shoving one of the kitchen chairs farther under the table, "there's Nick's to adjust to." "But we've never really talked about..." Mom sighed, dried her hands, and walked over to her. "I just want to make sure you're okay. And if you want to talk about anything, I'm here for you." Ivy nodded, touched that her mother, even in her uncertainty, wanted to be sure Ivy was all right, but a small part of her knew if she had a boyfriend or even the prospect of a husband and a future, her mother probably wouldn't be worrying so much. Maybe not at all. Still, she appreciated her offer. "Dengue," she said. "That's good to know." Her father and brothers entered the kitchen, and after they took turns washing their hands, everyone sat down at the table. When they'd finished eating breakfast, Ivy cleared the table and started filling the sink with fresh water. "I'll do the dishes," Mom said, turning off the tap. "You gay on to work." "Are you sure?" "Yeah." She wiped her hands on her apron. "Are you still planning to gay to Phoebe's after work?" Ivy nodded. Phoebe Chupp had invited her and Karen over to make Christmas cards. Many Birch Creek residents sent homemade cards this time of year. Ivy's best friend, Leanna, who was also Phoebe's sister-in-law, was coming as well. Ivy was looking forward to spending time with her friends, even if she sometimes felt like an outsider because they were all married and, in Phoebe's case, had 2 children. "Do you want to join us, Mom?" She shook her head. "I've got plenty to do here. You have fun." "I will." She went to the mudroom and put her navy blue scarf around her neck, noticing the small hole in one end. She kept putting off darning it. Sewing wasn't her favorite activity, but she needed to tend to it before the hole grew bigger and ruined the whole scarf. She slipped on her coat and boots before making her way outside. As she headed to the barn, she wrapped the scarf more tightly around her neck. It was a crisp morning, and she looked up at the rising sun as it peeked out from behind puffy white clouds. Tucking her chin deeper into her scarf, she entered the barn, nodded at her 16-year-old brother Ira, who was cleaning out the stalls, and hitched up the buggy. By the time she reached the Millers, the sun had finally risen and the clouds had disappeared. She parked the buggy, unhitched the horse, led him to the fenced-in pasture behind the barn, and then went inside the small, modest Amish home. The Millers had been in the bookbinding business for almost 30 years, bringing it to Birch Creek when they moved here 10 years ago. She found it hard to believe this was her last day working for the kind couple. She'd miss them, but not necessarily the work. She found it tedious, especially the book repair orders that occasionally came in. David worked on the most valuable and delicate repairs, but Ivy had learned how to replace and repair pages in books that had more sentimental value than monetary value. In the Miller's mudroom, she removed her boots and hung up her scarf and coat before going to the back room where the Millers had set up their workshop. When she walked in, David was hunched over his desk, the scent of glue, old books, and fresh paper hanging in the air. "Good morgen," Magdalena Miller said from her usual position at a large table in the center of the room. She was packing spiral-bound cookbooks into a small box. She paused, her lips forming a slight smile, deepening the wrinkles at the corners of her mouth. "I have something for you." "For me?" She watched in surprise as Magdalena turned, picked up a large hardcover book, and walked toward Ivy. "For you." Magdalena handed the book to her.